Some strains in China's relationship with the U.S., especially over the Diaoyu Islands and the recent declaration by China of its air defense zone. We wanted to find out how these differences could impact the overall relationship between the two countries. My colleague, Anna Naidu, asked the Vice President for Studies at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, Douglas Paal.
Well, if they're not managed carefully, these kinds of tensions can undermine relations. But this is a work in progress. We're going to have new points of contact that we've not had experience with before every day, because China has new capabilities that it's exerting. And so we're going to have to work our way through. The question is, can the security mechanisms in both capitals find ways to keep these from tensions that were naturally going to occur from dominating the relationship? The history of rising powers and resident powers conflicting with each other is pretty grim. In the nuclear age, it's really unacceptable to let that get out of control, because the consequences would be disastrous for the world for the 21st century. So it's important for leaderships to exercise management of these issues as they arise.
Right, yet at the same time, the Chinese President Xi Jinping said in November, just a short while ago, that there will never be an end to reform and opening up. How is that kind of sentiment viewed in the United States and generally in the Western world?
Oh, we're looking forward to reform. We've just had a delegation in Beijing led by our Commerce Secretary talking to the Chinese about areas of conflict and cooperation in our economic relationship. And on the whole, the more China pursues reform, the better for the Chinese people, but also the better for those of us who trade and invest with China.
And China, of course, is a growing economic power. I want to go back to something you wrote in September of 2010. You said, is China destined to move beyond its newly won position as the world's #2 economy to become #1? Will the United States be displaced from its primacy in global security? Is the rising power destined to clash with the current leading power? And the question is, does the United States see China's growth as a threat?
Well, as I went on to say in that same piece in 2010, we don't see China as a threat, although some people in America will, of course, try to claim there's a threat there. The U.S. administration, and consistently through several administrations, has not seen China's rise as itself a threat. We're used to people rising in new economies. What's new in this case is that China is coming from so far back so rapidly that people are having a hard time adjusting to it, and including the Chinese leadership, which has not had a lot of experience in managing international affairs on the close hold basis. It used to be China could just take a principled position and watch how things play out. But now China is part of the action.
Looking at global perceptions of the two countries, Pew Research did a survey in July about how different countries around the world view these two countries. It found the U.S. had a 63% favorability rating, with China at a 50% favorability rating. Going deeper, just 37% of Americans have a favorable view of China, and just 40% of Chinese have a similar view, a favorable view of the United States. How important is it for both these countries to improve those numbers?
Well, you know, you always work on it, but it's really subject to the headlines of the day and the mood of the country. If the country is in a happy mood about its own economy, it doesn't look for scapegoats for problems. If it has a problem at home, it often says, well, look, China's exploiting our difficulties. Or Japan, 20 years, 30 years ago, people said Japan was exploiting our difficulties. These are transient phenomena, in my view. The overall position of the U.S. and China is going to take work. We have two cultures that very poorly understand each other. I think more Chinese who are educated have a better sense of the U.S. than educated Americans have a sense of China. So we should do more about that. In fact, President Obama has a thing called the 100,000 Strong Initiative to get 100,000 American students into Chinese schools. China has over 235,000 in American schools right now, and we've got a big deficit to make up.
Right, looking at improving relations, President Obama has picked to be his next ambassador to China, Max Baucus, and he has said he will seek to improve ties. I want to read to you something from a Global Times commentary about the role of ambassadors in China. It said, their individual influence on this bilateral tie is limited, but a breakthrough on mutual trust is what is absent from Sino-US relations. It needs to be included with the next ambassador's agenda. You agree?
Well, that would be nice, but trust is not something you just fix. Trust is something you build up through successive actions over a long period of time. There is mistrust between the U.S. and China, and there are dynamic forces, as we've discussed, between a rising power and a resident power, where these mistrust gaps are made to grow. But with time, with hard work, and with top-down leadership, we can, one by one, try to dispel those areas of mistrust as they arise.
Douglas Paal, thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome.